Okay, the topic is Hypersphere World Universe Model, introductory remarks by myself. And the womb theory that Vladimir has come up with is a new paradigm. And what that means is a new way of thinking about cosmology. And so people might want to know, why do we need a new way of thinking about cosmology? Why do we need a new theory? Well, it's a replacement for the lambda cold dark matter standard model of cosmology. Why do we need a replacement? Well, I've talked about these things a number of times. I'm going to go over them again. We have this philosophical problem that the theory requires a miracle to occur at t equals 0. What happens before t equals 0? That's the origin of the universe, or the time at which the Big Bang happens, t equals 0. Okay. And that's been a problem since the introduction of the Big Bang idea that has this beginning at some point in time. Okay, another problem is that the standard model requires inflation and hypothetical dark matter. Now, inflation is one of the big issues. It's kind of an ad hoc fix to some problems in the Big Bang theory, the part where matter is created by fusion. Okay, so the whole idea of the Big Bang is that you have a hot Big Bang, and during this hot phase, the elements are synthesized by fusion. But all of the elements are not created by the Big Bang fusion that occurs, and ad hoc fixes are required to solve this problem. So when the Big Bang occurs, the only elements that are created are hydrogen and helium. Now, the womb, I think, is a way of resolving this problem of the elements that are created. Okay, then there's the problem of the galaxies, stars, and planets need to be formed out of this gas that's created by the Big Bang explosion, if you will. And one of the main problems is the angular momentum problem. How does angular momentum arise? And when they talk about the rotation of the clouds that form stars and galaxies, it turns out there's too much angular momentum. And so this is a problem. WOMB is addressing this problem. Then there's the hypothetical dark energy that's needed to agree with the observations. I don't think WOMB has any dark energy in it. And then finally, we have the formation of quasars and AGNs due to supermassive black holes is not observationally supported. So there's problems with the Big Bang. So the reason I'm giving this introduction is we should be looking in Vladimir's presentation. We should try to pay attention to how he solves some of these problems. Okay, so Vladimir, I'm going to let you get off. Go ahead.
Harry, thank you for your introduction.
Oops. Okay. Okay, Vladimir, you can go ahead now.
You can hear and see my text. Yes?
Unfortunately, your screen disappeared.
Please try to pass control to me.
All right. You're good to go now, as far as I can see. Yes, you're good to go.
Okay, thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. 4 months ago, I finished my 8 presentations about World Universe Model. It seems to me that it's time to refresh our memories. Let's start. Hypersphere Universe Model is radically different from the prevailing Big Bang model. The main advantage of WM is its elimination of the initial singularity and inflation, providing explanations for unresolved problems in cosmology. This digest offers an overview of WM covering the period from 2013 to 2024 and explores various themes of the world. It concludes a series of 38 articles published in the Journal of High Energy Physics, Gravitation, and Cosmology. Interested readers are encouraged to consult the published articles for more details. Several ideas presented in this digest are not new, and we do not claim credit for them. In fact, these ideas, originally proposed by classical scientists, are researched by WM with fresh insights. The model presents a revised framework for understanding the universe and is, in fact, a new paradigm for cosmology. WM is a classical model and should be described using classical notions. That is why classical physics is needed. Classical notions define emergent phenomena, which are properties that is a result of simple interactions that work cooperatively to create a more complex interaction. These simple interactions occur at the microscopic level, while their collective outcomes can be observed at the macroscopic level. WM introduces classical notions from the moment a first ensemble of particles was created. It is about 10 to the minus 18 seconds. Classical physics deals with ensembles of quantum objects. Hypothesis resurrected by WM. Ether. Physical ether was suggested by Newton in 1675. Following the work of Jung and Fresnel, it was believed that light propagates as a transverse wave within an elastic medium called luminiferous ether. At that time, it was realized that ether could not be an elastic matter of an ordinary time that can transmit longitudinal waves only. Unique properties of ether were discussed by Mark Kulak in 1846, who proposed a theory of rotationally elastic medium. The potential energy of deformation in such a medium depends only on the rotation of the volume elements and not on their compression or general distortion. This theory produces equations analogous to Maxwell equations. Ether with these properties can transmit transverse waves. He has this to say about the ether. The constitution of the ether, if it ever would be discovered, will be found to be quite different from anything that we are in the habit of conceiving, though at the same time very simple and very beautiful. An elastic medium composed of points acting on each other in the way supposed by Poisson and others will not answer. Luminiferous ether was abandoned in 1905 by special relativity. In later years, there have been classical physicists who advocated the existence of ether. Nikola Tesla declared in 1937, in prepared statement on the 81st birthday, of all attempts to explain the working of the universe without recognizing the existence of the ether and the indispensable function it plays in the phenomena are futile and destined to oblivion. Paul Dirac stated in 1951 in the article in Nature titled, "Is There an Ether?" that we are rather forced to have an ether. In WM, the medium is an active agent in all physical phenomena in the world. WM is a theory of the medium. The model is based on Maxwell's equations, and Mark Kulak's theory is a good fit for description of the medium. The model introduces the medium that is some kind of ether, but WM is the only model which proposes the constitution of it. The existence of the medium is the principal point of WM. It follows from the observations of intergalactic plasma confirmed by fast radio bursts, cosmic microwave background radiation, far infrared background radiation. According to WM, intergalactic voids discussed by astronomers are in fact examples of the medium in its purest. The medium is the absolute frame of reference. The medium is a savior of classical physics. Do not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Lesage theory of gravitation. We are resurrecting Lesage theory because in whom the energy density of the medium is the crucial concept. Wikipedia summarizes this theory as follows. The Lesage theory of gravitation is a kinetic theory of gravity, was originally proposed by Euler in 1690 and later by Lesage in 1748. The theory proposed a mechanical explanation for Newton's gravitational force in terms of streams of tiny unseen particles, which Lesage called ultramundane corpuscles, impacting all material objects from all directions. According to this model, any two material bodies partially shield each other from the impinging corpuscles, resulting in a net imbalance in the pressure exerted by the impact of corpuscles on the bodies, tending to drive the bodies together. Lesage proposed quantitative estimates for some of the theory parameters. He called the gravitational particles ultramundane corpuscles because he supposed them to originate beyond our known universe. It was a genius prediction of universe-created particles xions in WM. The distribution of the ultramundane flux is isotropic, and the laws of its propagation are similar to that of light. To maintain mass proportionality, ordinary matter consists of cage-like structures in which their diameter is only the 10 millionth part of their mutual distance, so the particles can pass through them nearly unhindered. In WM, a time-varying gravitational parameter g is proportional to the energy density of the medium. Tau is the cosmological time. It is not constant. That is why WM aligns gravity with Lesage theory of gravitation. The gravity is the result of weak interaction of universe-created bosons xions with matter that work cooperatively to create a more complex interaction. The total xion energy density is about 64% of the total energy density of the world. Particles xions are responsible for the Lesage's mechanism of the gravitation. Lesage theory is the very first theory which defines the gravity as an emergent phenomenon. Gravity is not an interaction, but a manifestation of the medium. Dark, invisible stars. John Michell was an English natural philosopher and clergyman who provided pioneering insights into a wide range of scientific fields, including astronomy, geology, optics, and gravitation. Considered one of the great unsung scientists of all time, he is the first person known to have proposed in 1783 the existence of dark stars, and the first to have suggested that earthquakes traveled in seismic waves. The American Physical Society described Mitchell as being so far ahead of his scientific contemporaries that his ideas languished in obscurity until they were reinvented more than a century later. The Society stated that while he was one of the most brilliant and original scientists of his time, Mitchell remains virtually unknown today, in part because he did little to develop and promote his own path-breaking ideas. Mitchell suggested that there might be many dark stars in the universe and proposed that astronomers couldn't detect dark stars by looking for star systems which behaved gravitationally like two stars, but there where only one star could be seen. He argued that this would show the presence of a dark star. It was an extraordinary accurate prediction of binary systems in which a dark star and a normal star orbit around their center of mass. In the Milky Way galaxy, there are a dozen such binary systems emitting X-rays. Please pay tribute to this genius physicist. The first known binary star system was Cygnus X1, identified by researchers in 1971, 180 years later. It remains among the most studied astronomical objects in its class. The compact object is now estimated to have a mass about 21.2 mass of the Sun. Cygnus X1 is about 5 million years old. Though highly and erratically variable, Cygnus X1 is typically the brightest persistent source of hard X-rays with energies up to 60 kiloelectron volts. In WM, cores of all macro objects are in fact dark stars. Hypersphere universe. In 1854, Riemann proposed the hypersphere as a model of a finite universe. The hypersphere is the surface of a four-dimensional ball, which is the nucleus of the world in our model. WM follows this idea, albeit proposing that the world is evenly stretched as the result of the expansion of the nucleus along its fourth spatial dimension. We introduce a hypersphere world because there is no center of expansion in 3D universe. There is no initial singularity. The center of the world is in the center of four-dimensional nucleus. The creation of UC matter occurs homogeneously in all points of the hypersphere world. Gravitoelectromagnetism. Gravitoelectromagnetism is the gravitational analog of electromagnetism. Jim equations, differing from Maxwell equations by some constants, were first published by Heaviside in 1893 as a separate theory expanding Newton's law. Jim approximates the Einstein's gravity equations in the weak field limit. Turing pointed out this analogy in his On the Formal Analogy Between the Basic Electromagnetic Equations and Einstein's Gravity Equations in First Approximation paper published in 1918. It allows us to use Jim equations for the gravity. Ludwig, in the article Galactic Rotation Curve and Dark Matter According to Gravitomagnetism 2021, made the conclusion that the effects attributed to dark matter can be simply explained by the gravitomagnetic field produced by the mass currents. In accordance with WM, universe created matter that was named dark matter earlier in our publications is concentrated in cores of all macro objects. There are no supermassive black holes. Instead, there are UC cores of galaxies. WM is based on the gravitomagnetism. The explanation of galactic rotation curve made by Ludwig is in a good agreement with the approach of WM. Rotational fission. Lunar origin fission hypothesis was proposed by Georg Darwin, Charles Darwin's son, in 1879 to explain the origin of the moon by rapidly spinning Earth, on which equatorial gravitative attraction was nearly overcome by centrifugal force. Solar fission theory was proposed by Louis Jacquot in 1951, who stated that the planets were expelled from the sun one by one from the equatorial bulge caused by rotation. The moons and rings of planets were formed from the similar expulsion of material from their parents' planets. Tom Flandern extended the theory in 1993. WM follows this idea, albeit proposing that the origin of all macro objects is due to rotational fission of overspinning UC matter superclusters caused and self-annihilation of universe-created particles. Dirac large number hypothesis. In 1937, Paul Dirac proposed a large number hypothesis and hypothesis of variable gravitational constant, later incorporating a concept of continuous creation of matter in universe. WM builds upon these ideas, introducing a distinct mechanism for matter creation. Dirac large number hypothesis is an observation made by Dirac relating ratios of size scales in the universe to that of force scales. The ratios constitute exceptionally large dimensionless numbers, about 40 orders of magnitude, in the present cosmological epoch. According to Dirac's hypothesis, the apparent equivalence of these ratios might not be a mere coincidence, but instead could imply a cosmology where the strength of gravity, as represented by the gravitational constant g, is inversely proportional to the cosmological time. WM follows the idea of time-varying g and introduces a dimensionless time-varying quantity q, which is a measure of size r and h tau of the world and is in fact Dirac large number. In this equation, a basic size unit of A equals about 10 to the minus 14 meters, T0 is the basic time unit, and C is the gravitodynamic constant. In the present epoch, the quantity Q equals about 10 to the power 40 as Dirac hypothesized. Emergent gravity, space and time. Barcelo et al. In 2011 have this to say about emergent gravity. One of the more fascinating approaches to quantum gravity is the suggestion, typically attributed to Sakharov, that gravity itself may not be fundamental physics. Indeed, it is now a relatively common opinion that gravity, and in particular the whole notion of space-time and space-time geometry, might be no more fundamental than is fluid dynamics. The word fundamental is here used in a rather technical sense. Fluid mechanics is not fundamental because there is a known underlying microphysics, that of molecular dynamics, of which fluid mechanics is only the low energy, low momentum limit. WM, time and space are connected with the medium's impedance and gravitomagnetic parameter. It follows that neither time nor space could be discussed in absence of the medium. The gravitational parameter G, that is proportional to the medium's energy density, can be introduced only for the medium filled with matter. In this regard, it is worth recalling the Einstein's quote: "When forced to summarize the theory of relativity in one sentence, time and space and gravitation have no separate existence from matter. In WM, space, time, gravity are all emergent phenomena." It is a real shame that orthodoxies overlook or have forgotten the brilliant physicists and their groundbreaking ideas. Please pay tribute to them. WM is based on the following primary assumptions. World is a finite, boundless hypersphere of a 4D nucleus of the world that is expanding along the fourth spatial dimension of the nucleus with speed equal to a gravitodynamic constant c. Eternal universe is the creator of universe-created matter, which is continuously created in the nucleus. Ordinary matter is a byproduct of UC particle self-annihilation. Two fundamental parameters in various rational exponents define all macro and micro features of the world. Dimensionless Rydberg constant alpha, that is named defined structure constant now, R infinite is a Rydberg constant, and time varying quantity Q, that is in fact the Dirac large number. Principal points. Wm is based on the following principal points. Beginning. The world was started by fluctuation in the eternal universe, and the nucleus of the world, which is a 4D ball, was born. An extrapolated nucleus radius at the beginning was equal to the basic size unit of A. All points of the hypersphere are equivalent. There are no preferred centers or boundaries of the world. Stretching of the world. The 4D nucleus is expanding along its imperceptible fourth spatial dimension, so that the radius of the nucleus R is increasing with speed c. Its surface, the hypersphere, is evenly stretched. Creation of matter. The surface of the nucleus is created in a process analogous to sublimation. Continuous creation of matter is the result of this process. Sublimation is a well-known process that happens when surfaces are intrinsically more energetically favorable than the bulk of a material, and hence there is a driving force for surfaces to be created. The universe creates UC matter in 4D nucleus. UC particles carry new UC matter into the world. Ordinary matter is a byproduct of UC particle self-annihilation. The proposed 4D process is responsible for 4D nucleus expansion, the world stretching, creation of matter, and a row of time, which doesn't depend on any physical phenomenon in the medium. It is the result of the nucleus expansion due to the driving force for surfaces to be created. Creation of UC matter occurs homogeneously in all points of the world. Content of the world. The world consists of the medium and macro objects. Total energy density of the world equals to the critical energy density throughout the world's evolution. The energy density of the medium is 2/3 of the total energy density, and macro objects 1/3 in all cosmological times. The relative energy density of UC particles is about 92.8%, and ordinary particles about 4.8% in the medium of the world and 2.4% in macro objects. Homogeneous and isotropic medium consisting of protons, electrons, photons, neutrinos, and UC particles is an active agent in all phenomena in the world. Wm is a classical model, therefore classical notions can be introduced only when the very first ensemble of particles was created at the cosmological time, about 10 to the minus 18 seconds. Time, space, and gravitation are connected with the impedance, gravitomagnetic parameter, and energy density of the medium, respectively. It follows that neither time, space, nor gravitation could be discussed in absence of the medium. There is no medium, there is nothing. Whom is based on cosmological time tau that marches on at the constant pace from the beginning of the world up to the present epoch, along with time-varying cosmological parameters, which are inversely proportional to tau. Therefore, there is no problem with the time equals 0. Rotational fission. The mechanism that can provide angular momentum to macro objects is the rotational fission of overspinning surface speed at equator exceeding escape velocity prime objects. From the point of view of fission model, the prime object is transferring some of its rotational angular momentum to orbital and rotational momenta of satellites. It follows that the rotational momentum of the prime object should exceed the orbital momentum of its satellite. In WM, prime objects are UC cores of superclusters, which must accumulate tremendous rotational angular momentum before the birth of a luminous world. It means that it must be some long enough time in the history of the world, which we named dark invisible epoch. Dark invisible epoch spans from the beginning of the world, 14.22 billion years ago, to 0.45 billion years for Laniakea supercluster that is a home to Milky Way, when only UC matter macro objects existed. Luminous epoch has lasted ever since 13.77 billion years, when luminous macro objects emerged due to explosive volcanic rotational fission of overspinning UC matter superclusters cores. It looks like a firework of UC matter cores of satellites at the same time, so that the direction of the sum of satellites' angular momentum coincides with the angular momentum of prime object. There are no preferences of directions of satellites' rotation at any level, galaxy, extrasolar systems versus random rotation direction. UC matter cores of prime objects detonate at critical points of their stability. Macro object shell model. Macro objects of the world possess the following properties. Their cores are made up of UC particles. They contain other particles, including UC particles and ordinary particles, in shells surrounding the cores. Introduced weak interaction between UC particles and ordinary particles provides integrity of all shells. UC matter reactors. Macro objects cores are UC matter reactors fueled by UC particles. All chemical elements, compositions, radiations are produced by macro objects themselves as the result of UC particles' self-annihilation in their UC matter cores. Nucleosynthesis of all elements occurs inside of macro objects during their evolution. Macro object formation. Superclusters are principal objects of the world. Macro objects, superclusters, galaxies, and extrasolar systems form in parallel around different cores made up of different UC particles. The finite, boundless world presents a patchwork quilt of different main luminous superclusters, about 1,000, which emerged in various places of the world at different cosmological times. The distribution of macro objects is spatially inhomogeneous and anisotropic and temporally non-simultaneous. Macrostructures of the world form from the top superclusters down to galaxies and extrasolar systems. Laniakea supercluster with binding mass about 10 to the power 17 mass of the Sun is home to Milky Way and about 100,000 other nearby galaxies, which didn't start their movement from initial singularity. All these galaxies are moving around the center of Laniakea supercluster according to gravitational laws for masses and mass currents with time-varying parameter g. Neighboring superclasses Shapley, Coma, and Perseus species have the same structure. The stretching of the hypersphere world can be explained in the following way. The radius of 4D nucleus of the world increases along an imperceptible fourth dimension. Its surface area grows. The distance between centers of main superclusters increases. There is no dark energy. There is no need in dark energy. Macro objects evolution. The formation of galaxies and stars is not a process that concluded ages ago. Instead, it is ongoing. Assuming the eternal universe, numbers of cosmological structures on all levels will increase. New superclusters will form, existing clusters will obtain new galaxies, new stars will be born inside existing galaxies, sizes of individual stars will increase. The temperature of the medium will asymptotically approach absolute zero. Thanks to revealed by WM interconnectivity of primary cosmological parameters, we show that gravitational parameter that can be measured directly makes measurable all cosmological parameters, including the absolute age of the world, which cannot be measured directly. Universe created matter. In our previous articles, we followed the standard paradigm dark matter that is not right for WM, in which the world consists of particles of ordinary matter, protons, electrons, photons, and neutrinos. On the other hand, there are particles created by the universe. You see particles of a new kind of universe created matter. In 2022, we introduced a new term, you see particles, which have following characteristics. You see fermions or bosons, rest energies to them, see table 1, weak interaction, and self-annihilation. Ordinary particles are a byproduct of UC particle self-annihilation. It is easy to switch from dark D matter to universe created UC matter. In the following table, there are universe-created particles, presented different fermions and bosons. In this table, a basic energy unit E0 equals to 70 mega-electron volt, where H is the Planck constant and C is the electrodynamic constant. These particles are dark, optically invisible, when astronomers observe the world with telescopes only. It is worth noting that the rest energy of electron equals to alpha multiplied E0, and the Rydberg unit of energy is half of alpha cubed E0. Considering these two well-known equations, and the main goal of WM, two parameters only, alpha and Q, we propose for UC particles the value of rest energies, which must be constant, created by universe, and therefore are proportional to rational exponents of alpha. Take a look at this table. All of them have this parameter alpha in different rational exponents. A contemporary astronomy allows us to observe the world on wavelengths from radio waves up to gamma rays. Then they are not dark at all. The first known binary system was Cygnus X1, which is the brightest persistent source of X-rays with energies up to 60 kiloelectron volts. In 2000, Minchin et al. Discovered binary galaxy system Virga HI-21 with NGC 4254 galaxy, which has the 21 centimeter emission. These two kinds of matter have different origin of radiations. Ordinary matter radiates electromagnetic waves from radio waves up to X-rays by electrons outside nuclei. UC matter radiates gamma rays, which are emitted by nuclei as a result of self-annihilation of UC particles with rest energies covering 18 orders of magnitude. WM proposes multi-component UC matter system consisting of two couples of co-annihilating UC particles, a heavy fermion UCF1, 1.3 tera-electron volts, and a light spin zero boson, Dirac, 70 mega-electron volt, that is a dipole of Dirac's monopoles with charge mu equals E over 2 alpha, a heavy fermion UCF2, 9.6 giga-electron volts, and a light spin zero boson, LOP, 340 kiloelectron volts, that is the dipole of preons with electrical charge E over 3. Fermions UCF3, 3.7 kiloelectron volts, UCF4, 0.2 electron volts, and boson Xion, 5.3 microelectron volts. The reason for this multi-component UC matter system was to explain the diversity of very high energy gamma ray sources in the world, the diversity of UC matter cores of macro objects of the world, superclusters, galaxies, and extrasolar systems, which are fermion compact objects and the UC matter reactors in WM. UC particles do not possess an electric charge. Their masses cannot be directly measured by mass spectrometry. Hence, they can be observed only indirectly. The signatures of UC particles self-annihilation with expected ranges of 1.3 tera-electron volt down to 5.3 microelectron volts are found in spectra of diffuse gamma ray background and the emissions of various macro objects in the world. We connect observed gamma ray spectra with the structure of macro objects, nuclei, and shells composition. Self-annihilation of those UC particles can give rise to any combination of gamma ray lines. Thus, the diversity of very high energy gamma ray sources in the world has a clear explanation. WM predicts the existence of UC particles with rest energies from 1.3 tera-electron volt to 5.3 microelectron volt. Future efforts should focus on observing cosmic gamma rays with spectral lines corresponding to these predicted UC particles' rest energies. Most direct observational evidence of validity of WM. Microwave background radiation, intergalactic plasma, and far-infrared background radiation speak in favor of existence of the medium of the world. Milky Way is gravitationally bounded with the Virga supercluster and has an orbital angular momentum calculated based on distance of 65 million light years from the Virga supercluster and the orbital speed of about 400 kilometers per second, which far exceeds rotational angular momentum of Milky Way. To the best of our knowledge, WM is the only cosmological model that aligns with law of creation and conservation of angular momentum. Galaxy clusters are particularly important for UC matter studies. Mass-to-light ratio of the Virga superclusters is about 300 times larger than that of solar ratio. Similar ratios are obtained for other superclusters. These ratios are main arguments in favor of presence of significant amounts of UC matter in the world. Masses of superclusters can be estimated in two independent ways: from the scatter of in radial velocities of the galaxies within clusters, and by gravitational lensing that can measure cluster masses without relying on observations of dynamics. The existence of dark matter is accepted by astronomers and orthodoxies of the Big Bang model, but WM is the only model which proposes the composition of it. Medium of the world, UC matter, and angular momentum are the main three pillars of WM. Main results. Predictions. In 2013, WM revealed a self-consistent set of time-varying values of primary cosmological parameters of the world: gravitational parameter, Hubble's parameter, age of the world, temperature of microwave background radiation, and concentration of intergalactic plasma. Based on the interconnectivity of these parameters, WM solved the missing baryon problem and predicted the values of the following cosmological parameters: gravitation, concentration of intergalactic plasma, and the minimum energy of photons, which were experimentally confirmed in 2015-2018. Summary of the calculated by WM in 2013 cosmological parameters and experimentally measured parameters are presented in the following table. In this table, presented the calculated in 2013 cosmological parameters and measured in the year on the right side. Gravitational, take a look on the exact values of the gravitation and all these parameters to the measured parameters later. Gravitational parameter, Hubble's parameter in 2021, ionized baryons in 2016, minimum photon energy in 2017. Microwave background temperature was measured in 2009. Take a look on the calculated temperature of the WM in 2013, how it's close to the measured in 2009. Let me remind you that nobody, never in any model, calculated the temperature of microwave background radiation with such accuracy. Fast infrared temperature peak was measured in 1998, and only my model calculated the value of this temperature of this peak, 28,955, close to 29K, measured experimentally in 1998. And what is important, we calculated in 2013 at absolute age of the world, 14.226 billion years. We emphasize that WM allows precise calculation of values that were only experimentally measured earlier and makes verifiable predictions. The discovery of a supermassive compact object at the center of our galaxy, Nobel Prize in Physics 2020, made by Genzel and Guess, confirms one of the most important predictions of WM in 2013. Macro objects of the world have cores made up of the discussed dark matter particles. Other particles, including dark matter and baryonic matter, form shells surrounding the cores. GWST discoveries 2022 confirmed the most important predictions of WM in 2018. Absolute age of the world is 14.226 billion years. Dark invisible epoch spanning for Laniakea supercluster from the beginning of the world for 0.45 billion, when only UC matter macro objects form and evolve. Luminous epoch ever since
13.77 billion for linear key supercluster, when luminous macro objects, superclusters, galaxies, extrasolar system emerge. Macro objects of the world form from the top superclusters down to galaxies and extrasolar systems. Explain problems. WM solves following physical problems in contemporary cosmology and astrophysics through UC particles and their interactions. Angular momentum problem in birth and subsequent evolution of galaxies and extrasolar system explained by volcanic rotational fission of overspinning UC matter superclusters cause. Hubble explained by observations of galaxies which belong to different superclusters. The value of Hubble's parameter should be measured based on cosmic microwave background radiation data only. Missing baryon problem related to the fact that the observed amount of baryonic matter didn't match theoretical predictions solved by the calculation of the concentration of intergalactic plasma. Fermi bubbles, two large structures in gamma rays above and below galactic center, are stable clouds of UC particles, UCF1, F2, F3, containing uniformly distributed UCM objects in which UC particles self-annihilate and radiate gamma rays. Galaxies are elliptical in spirals due to explosive rotational fission of their overspinning UC matter cause. Coronal heating problem relates to a question of why the temperature of the solar corona is millions of degrees higher than that of the photosphere. According to WM, the origin of the solar corona plasma is not coronal heating. Plasma particles, electrons, protons, multicharged ions are so far apart that plasma temperature in the usual sense is not very meaningful. Plasma is the result of the self-annihilation of UC particles. The solar corona, made up of UC particles, resembles a honeycomb filled with plasma. Cores of Sun and Earth rotate faster than their surfaces despite high viscosity of the internal medium. WM explains the phenomenon through absorption of UC particles by cores. UC particles supply not only additional mass proportional to tau in power 1.5, but also additional angular momentum proportional to tau squared. Cores irradiate products of self-annihilation which carry away excessive angular momentum. Solar wind is the result of this mechanism. Internal heating of gravitationally rounded objects in solar system is explained by UC matter reactors inside of all macro objects fueled by UC particles. Internal heating is due to UC particles' self-annihilation. Diversity of gravitationally rounded objects in solar system is explained by UC matter reactors inside of macro objects fueled by UC particles. All chemical elements, compositions, and radiation are produced by macro objects themselves as the result of UC particles' self-annihilation in their different UC matter cores. Plutonium-244, with half-life of 80 million years, exists in nature. It is not produced by the nuclear fuel cycle because it needs extremely high neutron flux environments. Any plutonium-244 present in the Earth's crust should have decayed by now. In WM, all chemical products of the including isotopes Ki-40, Gallium-40, Uranium-238, Thorium-232, and Plutonium-244, are produced within the Earth as a result of UCF1 self-annihilation. They arrive in the crust of the Earth due to convection currents in the mantle carrying heat and isotopes from the interior to the planet's surface. Faint young sun paradox describes the apparent contradiction between observations of liquid water early in Earth's history and the astrophysical expectation that the sun's output would be only 70% as intense during that epoch as it is during the modern epoch. In WM, all macro objects of the world were fainter in the past. As their UC matter cores absorb new EC particles, the sizes of macro objects and thus their luminosity are increasing in time proportionally to tau. Considering the age of the world, 14.2 billion years, and the age of solar system, about 4.6 billion years, it is easy to find that the young sun's output was 67.6% of what it is today. Matter-antimatter asymmetry problem. Ordinary matter is a byproduct of UC particle self-annihilation. This problem does not arise since antimatter is not created by UC particles self-annihilation. Black body spectrum of microwave background radiation is due to thermodynamic equilibrium of photons with intergalactic plasma. Solar corona, geocorona, and planetary coronas made up of UC particles resemble honeycombs filled with plasma particles, electrons, protons, multi-charge ions, which are the result of UC particles self-annihilation. Wave-particle duality problem. In physics, the observer effect refers to the disturbance of a system caused by the act of observing it. A well-known example of this occurs in the double-slit experiment. Physicists have observed that when detectors are used to monitor quantum phenomena in this experiment, the very act of observation alters the outcome. When detectors are placed in the slits, they find that each photon passes through only one slit, behaving like a classical particle, rather than through both slits, which would indicate wave-like behavior. Crucially, when the path of the particle is observed, the characteristic interference pattern, typical of wave behavior, does not form, illustrating the principle of wave-particle duality. Richard Feynman famously noted that the wave-particle duality in the double-slit experiment is impossible, absolutely impossible to explain in any classical way, and that this mystery lies at the heart of quantum mechanics. Can you believe it? However, according to WM, the concept of wavelengths is a classical, not quantum. Wavelengths, in this view, is a property of an ensemble of quantum objects, such as photons or electrons, all of which possess four momenta, but not individual wavelengths. When the gravitostatic charge of particles is equal to their momentum, the gravitomagnetic flux is defined by these equations. In this equation, lambda dB is known as a de Broglie wavelength. Thus, in WM, wavelength is considered as a macroscopic phenomenon, representing the gravitomagnetic flux of particles characterized solely by their four momenta. This implies there is no wave-particle duality in WM, as wavelengths as an emergent phenomenon. The act of observation through detectors disturbs the observed system, an ensemble of particles, causing the emergent wavelengths to disappear. Consequently, the interference pattern no longer forms. The axis of evil refers to a controversial correlation between a plane of solar system and certain anomalies in microwave background radiation. This correlation suggests that the plane of solar system and by extension Earth's position may have greater cosmological significance than expected by random chance. Specifically, the motion and orientation of the solar system's ecliptic plane appear to align with certain features observed in MBR. In WM, the block body spectrum of microwave background radiation is explained by the thermodynamic equilibrium between photons and the intergalactic plasma, the existence of which has been experimentally supported by observations of fast radio bursts. The solar wind, which consists of charged particles, primary protons and electrons, emitted from the sun, has a plasma density distribution that varies with distance from the sun. Radial distribution. Close to the sun, about 0.1 astronomical unit, the particle density is high, ranging from 100 to 1,000 particles per cubic centimeter. On Earth's orbit, 1 astronomical unit, the density averages between 5 to 10 particles per cubic centimeter. Beyond 1 astronomical unit, the density decreases with the inverse square of the distance, reaching as low as 1,000, 5,000 particles per cubic centimeter between 80 to 120 astronomical units, before rapidly increasing near the heliopause to 500 to 10 particles per cubic centimeter. Latitude distribution. Near the solar equator, the solar wind is denser and slower, known as the slow solar wind, with speed of 300 to 500 kilometers per second. At higher latitudes near the sun's poles, the solar wind is faster and less dense, referred to as the fast solar wind, with speeds ranging from 7 to 800 kilometers per second. The distribution of solar wind plasma exhibits cylindrical symmetry relative to the plane of the ecliptic. An interaction of photons of microwave background radiation with this plasma may account for the anomalies associated with axis of evil. In Big Bang model, it's a crazy idea that after the Big Bang, 380,000 passed, microwave background radiation created. And then for about 13.7 billion years, it was going to us. But what is important, at the very beginning, this radiation knew about the ecliptic of the sun of our solar system that raised in 4.6 billion years ago. Can you believe it in this explanation? Sorry for my emotions. Conclusion. WM presents a new paradigm and a fresh approach to understanding the universe and the science of cosmology. It builds on the foundations of classical physics and has the potential to challenge core assumptions in both cosmology and classical physics. Rather than claiming to explain all existing cosmological data or presenting a fully developed theory, WM serves as a starting point for a new cosmology envisioned by Paul Dirac in 1937. While further refinement by discoveries of by the global physics community is essential, WM's insight, combined with the groundbreaking discoveries of the GWST, and the legacy of Dirac's ideas over 87 years underscore the need for a paradigm shift in astronomy, cosmology, and classical physics. Hypersphere World Universe model invites recognition. Thank you so much for your attention. Let's go to discussion.
Okay, very good. I actually like the conclusion a lot, and I think it bears, I want to point out to people that what he says in the conclusion is probably the best part of what he says in his presentation, and it may be difficult to understand everything that precedes it. And the idea is that it's a new way of thinking, and in the way physics is done, way science and cosmology is done, is they've imposed physics as we understand it on the universe, and if the universe doesn't agree with the physics that they're imposing on the universe, they do these ad hoc changes and try to make the universe fit into their scheme of physics that existed before they started looking at cosmology. So that's what they've done. They took general relativity and kind of imposed that on the universe, and came up with all these confusing models, a large number of different models of Friedman universes, and there's all different kinds of solutions. General relativity. All right, so I see that my computer is bogging down. Okay, so thank you for your presentation.
You are very welcome. Thank you for inviting me to your session.
So I'm going to put Jim up here. Jim, do you have any comments or questions that you'd like to ask? As you're the only person in the
I'm not
green
sure
room,
I have any comments that are
other than myself and Vladimir.
I'm not sure I have any comments that are much different from what I've said previously. To a certain extent, the UCPs might be considered by some observers to be analogical to the hypothesized gravitons and WIMP particles to explain gravity and so forth. So I guess one question would be, can we observe these UCP particles in the lab?
In lab, you mean experimentally? Yes, we can.
Yeah, like, in my room here, if I get some equipment and stuff, can I detect a UCP particle? Millions of dollars are being spent to try to detect the hypothesized gravitons and WIMP particles and whatever else they've got, and they've all seemed to have failed. So I'm wondering, what kind of an apparatus would you want to build to detect a UCP particle? And I guess there's a whole bunch of them.
Excuse me, there is no gravitons and WIMPs in my model. There are some other particles. For watching them,
correct.
For watching them, you need gamma ray telescopes. Gamma ray telescopes, unfortunately, you have to build on a satellite. And we have so many of them right now. We can watch all of these gamma radiation with expected gamma ray lines, as I showed in my presentation. There is only one radio waves, 21 centimeters. We can watch them on our Earth, and they Watch it. They found 21 centimeters in a binary galaxy. They found this radiation in some other galaxy. And this is exactly the gamma radiation of self-annihilation of bosons xions in my model with 5.3 microelectron volts.
Okay, so you do have some ideas as to how these
I cannot hear you, sorry.
UCPs could be detected down the roads if there's sufficient resource.
Sorry, I didn't hear your question. There was some break in your sound. I'm sorry.
Things have sort of, everyone's back now. I guess a similar question might be asked about the medium of the world that you talk a lot about in terms of how that might be measured or detected or described in more detail.
As I told in my report, microwave background radiation temperature was measured in 2009. The next question, microwave background radiation, they are measuring every day. They have already map of the whole sky of microwave background radiation. Intergalactic plasma, every day they have already map of the whole I'm sorry, something wrong with our connection. Intergalactic plasma, every day they have already map of the whole Harry, please take care about this because I cannot speak twice. I'm sorry. Microwave background radiation, I told you, it was temperature measured, and now every day it's measured. The second, intergalactic plasma concentration.
Go ahead. I'm not sure what's going on.
It's measured by fast radio bursts, and they calculated the concentration exactly what I predicted in 2013. Fast and far infrared background radiation was measured in 1998. All of these measured components of the medium. What else you need?
Well, I don't know. I was just asking the question. That's all.
Okay. It seems to me that I answered on your question.
Thank you.
Thank you for questioning.
Okay, I have summary remarks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, we got Nick in here. I'm gonna go through these summary remarks here, and I guess my point, what I understand about WUM. Now, if I'm misunderstanding, certainly you can correct me. I think there's a classical. Why is there an emphasis on classical physics? And my view is that the standard model, the way they're going about it, isn't really working very well. Although they claim that they can explain everything, but the only thing they really can, and that they really have got that is good evidence for the standard model is the cosmic microwave background radiation. But in pretty much other areas, they have to add on these ad hoc hypotheses to make the standard model work. So they're taking physics as they think it exists, okay, based on Earth experiments, and imposing that on the universe, and finding that that doesn't really work too good. Okay, and so they've had to do a lot of ad hocs into their model. So then there's the point of emphasis that you're making, which I think is interesting and important, although people don't really understand what the word medium means. So if you say the word medium, then everybody's bringing up their preconceived old physics notions or their pet theory ideas and trying to say, what does he mean by medium? And not really listening to what you're saying and trying to put together what you're saying and understand that. So people are putting their preconceived notions onto your theory. That's kind of what I noticed in the comments. And so my thinking about this, and I'm going to put my preconceived notions in there, is that the medium talking about, you're viewing the universe as the medium. That's a different way of viewing the universe. The way they're viewing the universe is that it's a void, empty space, and that's how special relativity and general relativity view space in the world. It's just this empty space thing, and you have field interactions in an empty space. And I think you're trying to bring up back the idea that there's a medium in which these interactions occur. Okay, and I think that's a different paradigm, a different way of thinking, rather than imposing the special relativity and general relativity ideology onto the universe as a whole. And I think your idea is that classical physics should be brought back to do this model, because the SR, GR ideas about the universe aren't working out very well. That's my view, and you can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right.
I think that WUM provides a different mechanism. I think that WUM provides a different mechanism for the origin of the elements, and I think this is really what I think is important. And perhaps this got lost a lot in the details of your presentation, but the current way, the model that they're thinking, the model of thinking that they're using is that the elements were created at the Big Bang, and they don't explain where the elements or the energy in the Big Bang comes from. That's just a hypothesis that that's how the world started. And they can't really create all of the elements. They can't really that we know of, how our Earth got created, how the sun got created, how the galaxies got created. They're the only thing that they have really is a Big Bang, and then after the Big Bang, everything becomes ad hoc. They have to invent and ridiculous hypotheses to basically explain what happens after the Big Bang. And basically, we know from the Hubble and the JWST galaxies out there, we have quasars, okay, and they formed very early in the universe, it looks like. And then there's active galactic nuclei, and there's different forms of that. We have radio galaxies, BL-Lacertae objects, Seifert galaxies, and what their explanation is that they're supermassive black holes. That seems sort of, that's another ad hoc thing where they've taken their general relativity theory and said, oh, our general relativity theory, these objects at the center of galaxies and explains quasars, but it doesn't really do it very well because black holes suck everything in, and what they're observing, the explanation of supermassive black hole is that it has to be sucking matter into it. That doesn't really follow in my view. So WUM removes some other problems, and one of them is there's no T equals 0, and there are no supermassive black holes that are needed to explain the existence of quasars and I think you talked in your presentation about how the cosmic microwave background is created or originates from the intergalactic medium, and structures in the universe better in your theory than they can in the standard theory. So those are some of the things that to me seem to be benefits of what you're talking about.
Yes, you're absolutely right.